You walked into the conversation knowing exactly what happened. You walked out apologizing for it. That's not confusion. That's manipulation. And it worked so well, you called it your fault. You've experienced this before, even if you didn't realize what it was. That strange moment when something inside you said, "This doesn't feel right," but somehow a few minutes later, you were the one apologizing. You walked into the conversation certain of what happened. You walked out questioning your own mind. And that is the trick manipulators use without you noticing. They don't force you. They don't need to. The most dangerous manipulators rarely look dangerous at all. They don't come at you with obvious cruelty or aggression. They come with calm voices, reasonable explanations, a perfectly timed smile, a look that says you're overthinking this. And slowly, almost invisibly, they begin to reshape the way you see reality. Because real manipulation isn't about controlling what you do. It's about controlling what you believe, about yourself, about them, about what really happened. And once someone can do that, they no longer need to control your actions. You'll do it for them. That's the part no one warns you about. Manipulation is rarely loud. It is subtle, psychological, almost elegant. It moves through tone, timing, silence, guilt, and suggestion. By the time you notice it, it has often already changed the way you think. Think about the last time someone made you feel guilty for being hurt. You tried to explain what they did. Maybe they ignored you, maybe they crossed a boundary, maybe they said something that stayed in your mind long after the conversation ended. But instead of acknowledging it, they turned the focus back onto you. Why are you making this such a big deal? You always take things the wrong way. I was joking. You're too sensitive. And suddenly the issue was no longer what they did. It became your reaction, your emotions, your problem. That shift is not accidental. It's one of the oldest psychological tricks in manipulation. Redirect the spotlight. Move attention away from the wound and onto the wounded person. Because once your mind starts defending itself, it stops questioning them. And this works because manipulators understand something about human psychology that most people don't. Your mind desperately wants internal consistency. You want reality to make sense. When someone you trust gives you an explanation, even a false one, your brain often chooses the explanation over the discomfort of uncertainty, especially when emotions are involved, especially when it's someone you care about, because it is easier to believe maybe I'm overreacting than to face the darker truth that someone close to you may be intentionally distorting your reality. This is why manipulation often hides inside relationships. Romantic ones, friendships, family dynamics, work environments, anywhere trust already exists. Trust lowers your defenses. And manipulators know that. They rarely attack your mind directly. Instead, they use familiarity. They use the fact that you want harmony, that you want connection, that you want to believe the best in people. And sometimes, your greatest strength becomes the doorway they walk through, your empathy. Because empathetic people naturally search for reasons. You explain their behavior. Maybe they're stressed. Maybe they didn't mean it. Maybe they had a hard day. Maybe they're hurting too. And without realizing it, you begin doing the manipulation for them. You excuse what should have alarmed you. You soften what should have been clear. You turn pain into understanding. And over time, your mind starts adapting to survive the confusion. And that's where manipulation stops feeling like something happening to you and starts feeling like something happening inside you. This is where the darker layer begins. Manipulators often use intermittent validation, not constant cruelty. That would be too obvious. Instead, they alternate. They wound you, then they comfort you. They dismiss you, then they pull you close. They make you feel invisible, then suddenly they make you feel chosen. This inconsistency is not random. It creates psychological dependency because your brain starts chasing the moments of relief, The warmth after the cold, the affection after the distance, the apology after the harm. And this creates one of the most powerful emotional traps in human behavior. You stop focusing on what they're doing overall. You start focusing on the next good moment, the next sign that things are getting better, the next version of them that feels safe. You begin to live emotionally on rewards, tiny moments, a text message, a compliment, a soft tone after days of silence. And because those moments feel so relieving, they begin to seem bigger than they really are. This is how manipulation disguises itself as connection. You think you're fighting for the relationship, but often you're fighting for the brief moments when the pain stops. And then something darker happens. You stopped asking if they were hurting you. You started asking how to hurt less. That is, the moment control becomes dependency, because now the goal is no longer truth, it's survival. This pattern activates something deep inside the mind. Uncertainty creates obsession. The human brain is wired to seek closure. When affection becomes unpredictable, your attention locks onto it. You replay conversations, you analyze tone, you search for meaning in every pause, every delay, every look. What are they thinking? Did I say something wrong? Why did they suddenly change? That mental loop is exactly where manipulation thrives. Because once your mind is trapped in interpretation, you stop seeing the pattern itself. You become too close to it, too emotionally invested to call it what it is. And that's why so many people don't realize what's happening until much later. From the inside, it feels personal. It feels emotional. It feels like confusion. But from the outside, it is often painfully clear. Distort, withdraw, reward, repeat. And slowly, almost invisibly, your sense of self begins to erode. This is where the manipulation moves deeper. It no longer stays inside conversations. It starts changing the way you move through your own mind. You become more cautious with your words. You rehearse conversations before they happen. You choose silence over honesty because honesty now feels dangerous. You begin filtering your emotions through how they might react. And that is one of the clearest signs that someone is psychologically shaping your reality. When your inner world no longer feels like it belongs to you. Maybe you've caught yourself doing this, needing their reaction to decide whether what you felt was valid, waiting for them to tell you what the truth is. The moment you need their reaction to trust your own feelings, you are no longer free. That's when manipulation becomes identity level. Maybe you start believing you really are too sensitive, too difficult, too demanding, too emotional. But often those beliefs were never truly yours. They were planted, repeated, fed back to you until they started sounding like your own voice. And here's the darkest part. The most powerful manipulation happens when the manipulator disappears. Because even when they're not there, the voice remains. You begin policing yourself, correcting yourself, doubting yourself before anyone else has the chance to. The external control becomes internal control. That's the final trick. They no longer need to manipulate you. Your mind continues the work on its own. And this is why people can remain psychologically trapped long after the relationship ends. Because manipulation leaves echoes, patterns of thought, emotional reflexes, invisible habits of self-erasure. You may leave the person, but still carry the distortion. Your instincts feel less trustworthy. Your perception feels blurred. Apologies rise to your lips for wounds you never caused. And from here, the damage often feels like personality. Like this is just who you are now. But it isn't. It's conditioning. And there is one thing manipulators fear more than anything: awareness. The moment you begin naming the pattern, it starts losing power. The moment you stop asking what's wrong with me and start asking why do I always feel smaller after speaking to this person, everything changes. Because manipulation survives in confusion. It needs fog, it needs emotional noise, it needs you to stay focused on isolated moments instead of the pattern. But once you start seeing the pattern, the illusion begins to crack. And maybe that's what this was always about. Not them. You. Your ability to trust what you feel. Because the first thing manipulation steals is not your freedom. It's your certainty. Your ability to believe your own mind. So if someone consistently leaves you doubting your memory, shrinking your feelings, or apologizing for your pain, pay attention. Because the trick manipulators use without you noticing is not making you obey. It's making you question yourself so deeply that obedience begins to feel like your own choice. And once you finally see the pattern, you realize it was never confusion. It was control. And the most haunting part is this. The moment the fog clears, you begin to see how long you were living inside someone else's version of reality. And once that realization enters your mind, it never truly leaves.